I hope all of you are having fantastic Thursdays, wherever you may be across this great nation or around the world. I want to let you know, Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. With Prize Picks, you against the number. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Get in on the excitement, win up to 100 times your cash. Summer games going on. They start tomorrow in Paris with Prize Picks. Again, 10 into $1,000 while watching Team USA try to rack up the gold medals. You can also pick so many different sports. Get it hooked up. You just need 2 to 6 players, and you're locked in. All you have to do is pick more or less. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code OutKick for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code OutKick on Prize Picks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Winner for you. We hit on a 5-1 last week. I gave you a 5-1 winner on the All-Star game Tuesday of last week. I've got another winner for you here. Baseball tonight. Shohei Ohtani. Did you see it hit like a 470-foot home run the other day out of Dodger Stadium? Shohei Ohtani, more than 1.5 total bases tonight. Shohei Ohtani, more than 1.5 total bases. My guy Marcell Ozuna, been on fire. Braves can't score. I think they get some runs tonight. More than a half on a home run. And a free winner for you for the basketball team. LeBron James, this is a free square to score more than 1 point. You hit all 3 of those, you win 5-1. Shohei Ohtani, more than 1.5 total bases. Marcell Ozuna, more than a half on the home run. That is at least 1 home run. And LeBron, more than 1 point. Boom. You hit all 3 of those. You are a winner. PrizePicks.com, code OutKick. Get hooked up today. That's PrizePicks.com, code OutKick. All right. Several different stories for us to dive into. Joe Biden's Oval Office address. Southwest Airlines has ended open seating, throwing my world into a crazy town. NBA rights battle going into the courts. TNT going head-to-head with Amazon. What do we think about that? Flags getting burned in the wake of Benjamin Netanyahu's speech on Capitol Hill yesterday. Encourage you to go watch that speech. It is phenomenal. And our good buddies, Steve Kerr and Steph Curry, there to represent the United States, the whole United States, that is the United States, decide to endorse Kamala Harris at the first opportunity when they are asked at their press conference. But I want to begin with what we saw last night, the knockout of Joe Biden. Make no mistake what occurred last night. Donald Trump knocked Joe Biden out. For decades to come, Trump versus Biden in the presidential debates is going to be discussed as the most consequential presidential debate potentially since Nixon versus Kennedy in 1960. And I got an interesting historic take for you on that. Nixon-Kennedy 1960 is famous for what reason? Because the difference in visual versus auditory and how it impacted what people thought of the debate. Those who listened on radio believed that Richard Nixon had won that debate. Those who watched on television believed that John F. Kennedy had won that debate. Why? Why the discrepancy? Why the dichotomy? Because Nixon, unshaven, not as attractive, did not have the cosmetic appeal that John F. Kennedy did. It represented a change in the way that we as individuals understand and follow politics. Audio, which was still a relatively new addition through the radio, Nixon won. But the cosmetic appeal, the visual of JFK compared to Nixon, JFK won. That's the historic record now. 60 some odd years later, you'll hear people talk about that, even people who never, like me, watched that debate in real time because I wasn't born for another 20 years. Okay, why do I bring that up? I would submit to you that Trump knocking out Biden 60 years from now is still going to be talked about. And I would submit to you that the reason why it took 27 days after he was knocked out for Joe Biden to officially tap out of the race is because we live in a unique era of transition that is not unlike the move from audio to video. 50 some odd million people watched the actual debate live on CNN on June 27th. But the reverberations of what took place in that debate continued to play out through easily accessible video versions of that debate, curated down to smaller segments and echoing and reverberating throughout the social media echo chambers for weeks after. In other words, the event occurs, but what is unique about the era that we now live in is the actual audience becomes more substantial in the echo than in the initial full viewing. And I think that's one of the big ways that media has changed now is we now not only experience the event, but we experience the reaction to the event, and that ripple continues for far longer in a social media context. And I would suggest to you that it was the continued ripple effect of Biden's getting knocked down. He wasn't able to get back up from the canvas for 27 days because the ripple effect of that knockout continued to spread throughout media, primarily driven by social media. They couldn't change the story of Joe Biden getting knocked out. Now, you can argue that's also partially because Democrats didn't want to change the story. They wanted to get rid of Joe Biden because they thought they had a better chance with Kamala. But long after I'm gone, long after any of you watching or listening to this are gone, people are going to be talking about the Trump-Biden debate as the first ever knockout in American political history. And it will now go alongside, I believe, of Nixon-Kennedy as one of the most consequential historic debates of all time. And that's even though Kamala Harris is now going to step into the fray and Trump will do something I don't think we've ever seen before, which is debate more than one presidential contender in the official presidential debates. So just worth paying attention there. I think that was the ripple effect of social media's continued reinforcing of what we saw happen. I haven't seen a lot of people talk about that, but as the technology changed from audio to video in 1960 with Nixon and Kennedy, can you make an argument that this is the evolution from television to individual video experience, which now occurs for all of us in social media? Maybe it's still a little bit early to discuss that technology, but I think it is representative of the new era in which we live, where most people are now getting their information not based off of traditional television broadcasting, but based off of social media feeds, recapitulating, analyzing, memifying everything that happened in real time. Something to contemplate. Okay, let's run into now some of what we've got going on in the sports world. Still somewhat quiet. I mentioned that tomorrow the Olympics begin in Paris. Like many of you, I will be watching the Olympics quite a lot over the next 2 weeks. I will be going to Israel next week. I'll be in Israel all next week. I'm in South Florida and New York prior to that. So I'm going to be, and then Colorado. I mentioned that I'm going to be on the road for like the next 3 weeks, basically. But already we have a sports story intersecting with politics, and as usually is the case, it is a sports story intersecting with left-wing politics. The United States men's basketball team has arrived in Paris. They, shortly after arrival, had press availabilities, as you would expect that they would. And what happens almost immediately in those press availabilities? Steve Kerr, the head coach of the men's Olympic team, and Steph Curry both endorsed Kamala Harris. Now, I'm not going to play the quotes for you or read them, but I do think this is indicative of why the NBA has lit its brand on fire. Somebody said in the comments, can you imagine the original Dream Team in the summer of 1992? Jordan or Larry Bird or John Stockton or Magic Johnson or any of those iconic Karl Malone basketball stars. I had the 1992 Dream Team t-shirt back when they used to put everybody in a cartoon image. I had that shirt. I was ecstatic to watch the Dream Team play in 92 after we lost in 88. Somebody in the comments said, can you imagine in the summer of 92, we had a hot political environment then too. Bill Clinton was running against the incumbent president, George Bush Sr., and Ross Perot was involved too. You had, much as we do today, a three-way political battle. Then it was Clinton, Bush, Perot. Now it is Trump, Kamala, and RFK Jr. None of the basketball players on the 92 Olympic team, I remember having, Charles Barkley was on that team too, having anything at all to say about politics. Because their goal was to just win a gold medal and kick everybody else in the world's butt on the basketball courts. Why couldn't, this is my question for you, they have tons of PR people surrounding this Olympic team. Remember, I wrote a book called Republicans Buy Sneakers Too. Why couldn't Steve Kerr, Steph Curry, and everybody else on the U.S. men's Olympic team have simply responded to the inevitable left-wing political sports media journalist questions, which they were going to get asked? This was inevitable. Do you endorse Kamala Harris? Do you endorse Donald Trump? Why not just say, hey, we're here to represent the entire United States of America for the next 2 weeks. We want to win the gold medal. And we want to make everybody, Democrats, Republicans, independents, proud of how hard we're going to work to do that here. We want to uplift the entire country. When we go back stateside, this election will be going on for months. If you really want to know my opinion, in September or October, when we get into NBA training camp, when the season begins, I'll tell you my opinion then. Heck, I might even show up at a political rally if I feel really strong about it. But right now, I don't think, particularly in the wake of an assassination, and given how freighted, how intense, how heated so many political conversations are right now, we want to use basketball to bring everybody together around the world. And so we're not really going to get involved in politics right now. I just came up with that off the top of my head. That entire answer. How much better would that answer have been from Steve Kerr and Steph Curry? We just want to unite all of America, regardless of what your background is or what your political beliefs or who you're voting for. We want you rooting for us. We want to use basketball to bring all Americans together for the next 2 weeks in the spirit of the Olympic Games. Why can't you just say that? Why did Steve Kerr and Steph Curry have to go super left-wing and super woke and use the very first opportunity they have to talk to the media to make a political statement? Because the result, I'll tell you what it's going to be. A lot of you out there are going to say, yeah, that's why I don't care about the NBA. That's why I don't even care that much about how the U.S. men's basketball team does. Because much like the U.S. women's soccer team, they took something that was incredibly unifying and they decided to slice and dice it all up by getting political and alienating half the country. 2019, I watched the U.S. women's soccer team win the World Cup. They were among the most beloved teams in all of the country. By last year, when Megan Rapinoe shanked a penalty kick, wide right, ironically enough, the U.S. women's team had become incredibly divisive because in 2019, they won the World Cup and they refused to go visit the White House with President Trump there. By 2023, they were seen as just another group of politicians. 1992, you could not find anyone that didn't want the United States to destroy every other country. Every sports fan, white, black, Asian, Hispanic in America in 1992 was rooting for the U.S. men's team to dominate. Now, there are going to be a lot of people out there that don't really care. I put up a poll. Some of you are going to root against the U.S. men's team. I can't bring myself personally to do that, but I'm in the don't care very much category. 92, I wanted America to win. I wanted us to win every game by 50 points. Now, I don't really care. It doesn't really matter to me that much how the U.S. men's basketball team does in this Olympics. Some of you are actively rooting for other countries to win. Some of you are still rooting for the United States. I would say that's entirely a function of Michael Jordan being right. Republicans buy sneakers too. Many of these athletes have managed to alienate huge swaths of the United States public that would otherwise root for them. So that's my take on Steph Curry and Steve Kerr deciding that they have to endorse Kamala Harris. They have the right to endorse whoever they want. I just think it would have been way smarter. Wait till you come back to the United States. Wait till you aren't wearing the United States team jersey. Wait till you are not at a U.S. Olympics press conference to decide that you need to weigh in on who to support politically. Now, there is an NBA rights battle. 11-year, $76 billion, I believe, deal. There's complexities here because they've taken away some of the local rights that used to belong to the team. But the NBA is going to be on ESPN. They're going to be on NBC. And it appears there's going to be a legal battle over whether the NBA is on Amazon or they're on TNT, which has been a historic partner of the NBA for, I think, like the last 40 years or so. What's the story here? Lawyers are going to get involved. And I told you this several days ago. I said it was inevitable. It seemed to me that this was going to end in a lawsuit. And the lawsuit is over. What does the contract say? Has, as they argue, Warner Brothers, which owns TNT, has Warner Brothers been able to match the contract offer of Amazon as is required and a right given to them under their existing contract? Or is the Amazon offer not been matched as the NBA is arguing and as Amazon is arguing as it pertains to this? Super complicated case. We will see exactly how it all shakes out. Warner Brothers suing the NBA to argue that they should be able to pay billions of dollars for NBA rights. The most interesting thing to me about this is you've got Amazon and Warner Brothers / TNT, the parent company of TNT, fighting in court now, spending tens of millions of dollars in legal fees over which of these companies gets to lose billions of dollars in NBA rights over the next decade or so. That in itself is kind of fascinating to me. Usually when you have legal disputes between companies, it's over who is going to be able to make the most money. Here, they're arguing over who should be able to lose the most money. Fascinating. To me, the solution is not that complicated. Amazon is around a $1.9 trillion company. In fact, let me give you the live dollar figure market cap valuations of these companies as I am talking to you right at this exact moment. Okay? So Warner Brothers, as I look at this right now, is down 5% today. That is a function in some way, I would imagine, of the fact that the market is not happy over this lawsuit. Warner Brothers has a market cap of just under $20 billion. Amazon has a market cap right now of $1.9 trillion. So Amazon is orders of magnitude larger than Warner Brothers. Here's my solution. Amazon should just buy Warner Brothers. Seems like a logical conclusion. Then Amazon Prime can take HBO, which is by far the most valuable portion of Warner Brothers. They can take the sports rights that they want, that TNT has, the NCAA tournament, which is very valuable, March Madness. The NBA dispute would go away because Amazon would get it, right? Major League Baseball, TNT has a decent amount of that. And now some of the college football playoff games, all that would roll into Amazon, and you would be able to unite, for instance, Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, because HBO has all the Game of Thrones rights and Amazon has Lord of the Rings. Plus, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Adam, who fact checks me, Warner Brothers also has all the rights to Harry Potter. How valuable would that be for Amazon Prime to have, not only for the movies that were already made, but the movies that are going to be made in the years ahead? Arguably, in the sort of sci-fi fantasy universe, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, and Harry Potter is kind of like the holy trinity of valuable properties. I know you still have Disney has Star Wars and Marvel. Those are very valuable too. But I can argue with you that Warner Brothers trio there is more valuable maybe than Star Wars and Marvel is to Disney. Feels like a huge win for Amazon. And it's a relatively small cost. Now, I haven't seen anybody else, and I'm correct in that, I haven't seen anybody else argue this, but if I'm running Amazon, I'm buying Warner Brothers. And then I'm going to spin off CNN for a few $1 billion. I don't know, maybe New York Times buys them. Somebody out there in left-wing media land would love to own CNN. I can spin off some of the different channels that I'm not really that interested in that still have some value. I retain HBO, all of the IP that I really want, and it costs me what? $25 or $30 billion? That's a rounding error for a $2 trillion company. I'm not always great at math, but 100 billion would be 1/20th of Amazon's market cap, right? 5% of Amazon's market cap would be 100 billion. They're a $2 trillion company. You're talking about Amazon's market cap giving up 1%, 2%, whatever the math is there, of your overall market cap, 2.5%, to be able to own, no, way less than that, to be able to own this entire Warner Brothers franchise. No brainer to me. For 1% of your market cap, you can eliminate any uncertainty. You can add some college football playoff games. You can add March Madness. You can guarantee yourself the NBA. You get all of the infrastructure from that network to be able to produce it. You get HBO. You get Game of Thrones and all of its subsidiary programming, like House of the Dragon that's going on right now. You get all the Harry Potters from here on into the future. It's a no-brainer. Now, again, I don't know if anybody at Amazon's making the thought process here to try to make that decision. To me, it is an easy decision to make. Rather than end up in a long-running, multi-million-dollar dispute over the NBA, I say, okay, let me just buy the whole company. And then I spin off whatever assets I don't want. Like I'm sure Amazon probably doesn't want CNN, I would bet, because I just don't think they want to get super political. They own a bunch of other stations, Discovery. Maybe they want to keep that. I can see a strong value for all of that Discovery nature programming into Amazon Prime. That doesn't seem crazy to me. again, I'm not Jeff Bezos. I'm not Andy Jassy, who runs Amazon. But if I were, and make sure we clip and share this because I'm not seeing anybody else talk about it, just buy all of Warner Brothers. Feels like a no-brainer to me. I don't know how many of you saw this. This is a big deal to me. Southwest Airlines has ended open seating. As I am talking to you right now, I'm not sure if this is a humble brag or if this is an indictment of me. I have 2.2 million Southwest airline points. I feel like I'm uniquely able to speak about this. I can't imagine there are that many Southwest Airlines customers that have ended up with 1 million or more Southwest points. So I have 2.2 million Southwest Airlines points. I flew Southwest to Milwaukee and back, met a bunch of you on the airplane. I am flying Southwest Airlines Sunday down to South Florida because I got to be down there for advertiser events. I have been flying Southwest my whole life as an adult because living in Nashville, Southwest Airlines is the airline that has the most nonstop direct flights anywhere else in the country. So I am a Southwest Airlines diehard. They are ending open seating. I hate it. I'm just going to be honest with you. I hate this idea of Southwest Airlines. Let me tell you why. I have the app on my phone. I fly all the time. I travel a lot. Sometimes I have to change the times that I want to leave. I like to be able to go in, just immediately see if there's going to be a seat available on a flight. I can switch easily. It doesn't cost me very much money. I think one reason that they're able to allow you to switch so much is because they don't assign seats. They have an A group, a B group, and a C group. I am A perpetually because of how much I fly. I also have the much vaunted companion pass. That means that my fortunate wife can fly for free with me on any Southwest Airlines flight I take anywhere in the country. Now, some of you, so I think this is a really bad decision. I like the ease of boarding. I'll tell you where I sit. Some of you have seen me. If I'm on a relatively short flight, that is, 2 hours or less, I will sit front row aisle seat. That's my preference. I want to get on and off the airline as fast as possible. By the way, I never check bags. No matter where I go, I'm not a bag checker. I'm not a fashion horse, but I just refuse to check bags. They always get lost. I'm impatient. I hate standing around waiting to see whether or not my bag's going to come off. I'm going to Israel. I'm going to South Florida. I'm going to New York. I'm going to Colorado. No check bag. I might have the hotel wash some of my clothes. I might just decide, you know what? I'll go buy a couple of new T-shirts or new shirts or whatever else. I'm not a bag check guy. Front row, aisle seat, or I've taken a lot of flights to LA over the years. I will go to the exit row and I will sit in the aisle. Now, some of you out there, when I shared this on social media earlier, some of you out there said, whoa, Clay, you're super rich. Why do you fly Southwest Airlines? Why do you fly Southwest Airlines? You are a 100 millionaire, which I am. You can afford to fly private anywhere in the country, which I can. I'll tell you. In fact, my wife has been on me lately. She said, hey, you shouldn't be flying Southwest Airlines. There's no security there. Somebody might say something mean. Somebody might try to pick a fight with you, whatever. She's been talking about this lately. I've never had a bad experience on Southwest. I'm a man of the people. I can't justify it. I was making $40,000 a year in 2011 when I started OutKick. 13 years ago, I was making $40,000 a year. For me to fly round trip on a private plane to New York City by myself costs around $25,000, roughly. Can be 20, It can be 30, just kind of depends. Anyway, I almost have to pay as much to fly to New York City and back as I was making for a living in 2011 when I founded OutKick. I was doing 3 hours a day of daily radio at the Zone, 104.5 in Nashville. I would make nearly in a whole year what I would pay today to fly to New York City. Or I can pay like $300 or $400 for a Southwest ticket. I can't justify it. And you can say that I'm a bad rich person. You should say, oh, Clay, you should spend money left and right. I'm not opposed to spending money. But in my head, I'm always going to be a guy who was trying to raise 2 kids, pay a mortgage, and take care of my family on $40,000 a year. So when I hear that's what the flight would cost and the other options like $400, I'm going to take Southwest Airlines. Now, there are times that I fly private, and I may buy a jet. I got to buy a lake house. I got the beach house. We're building a 20,000 square foot place, my wife is, here in Nashville that we're going to move into soon. It's going to have an incredible studio. Going to probably buy a lake house soon. These are the things that I want now that I'm rich. I'm probably going to buy a jet at some point. My wife is very anti buying the jet. There's a lot of expenses on it, everything else. Jets make sense for places that you want to go. I'm telling you now what I have learned now that I'm a rich guy that I didn't know when I was a poor guy. Jets make sense for places you want to go that are really hard to get to. I'll give you an example. It's not easy to get to Auburn, Alabama for a football game from where I live in Nashville. I'd have to commit 5 or 6 hours, as I have done, to drive to Auburn. I have to then get there, deal with the traffic, turn around, drive all the way back. That's a lot of effort. On a jet, I can go into Auburn, Alabama on the morning of a game, watch the game, turn around, fly back home, 45 minutes round trip. Each way, I mean. Super easy, boom, in and out. Got an Uber, take me right to the stadium. I did it last year to go to College Station. Not that easy from Nashville to get to College Station. I've flown private jets, private planes, sometimes smaller than jets, but a lot of times jets, into a lot of SEC towns because not that easy to get to. Fly into College Station, went to the Alabama, Texas A&M, took my family in and out same day. Houston, busy. National championship game, didn't know what was going to happen, didn't want to have to stay away from the kids, fly in and out with my wife, go watch Michigan play against Washington. She wanted to see that game, boom, in and out. With my family, WrestleMania. Wanted to go to WrestleMania in Philadelphia. Don't want to have to be away for days, got the family in and out. When I have multiple people, 5 to 7, Omaha. Just took my family to Omaha, took a buddy and his kid. In and out to Omaha. It's not easy to get to Omaha, Nebraska to go watch the College World Series from Nashville. Super difficult, long drive, many connecting flights, not very many directs. Okay, I'm going to go in and out private. That's when it makes sense, when you got 5 to 7 people on a plane who are going the same place or more, when it's a difficult place to get to. Sometimes going down to the beach. Not that easy all the time to get to Panama City Beach. Maybe the flights are booked up on Southwest, which I will fly. Being rich, to me, doesn't mean that you make irrational choices. It means that you make, at least for me, choices that are justifiable within the larger context of your schedule. If I have to go make a speech, and I don't want to stay away from my family for multiple days, going in and out on the day of the speech can make sense. That's a luxury, the time aspect. Getting to a place that's not easy to get to. But a lot of people are like, oh, why don't you just fly? It'd be crazy to me to spend $25,000 to fly to New York City when I can otherwise spend $400 to fly to New York City. That's kind of my thought process, again, as a newly rich guy, still in my head analyzing. Now, the reality is I'm saving a lot of money, and my kids are going to get it all. So they're probably going to be way worse at wasting money because they're probably never going to know what it's like to worry about having to pay your mortgage, hopefully. And you can say that makes them not really aware of what the real world is like. And I think that's true. When your dad is rich, when your family is rich, and you inherit money, you don't value it the same way when you didn't have it and you earned it yourself. So that's my thought. That's my analysis. I'll continue to fly Southwest Airlines, I think, for the rest of my life. Even if I buy a jet, I don't know that it's going to be worth flying it all the way to L.A. Now, if you got a company and you're like, hey, part of the cost of this company is we're going to buy this jet, and we're, as part of your corporate compensation, we're going to insist, this is what they do. A lot of private jet travel is corporate, and the way they justify it as not being income, I've learned this, is they say, well, it's not safe if you aren't on a private jet. The CEO is too valuable. The CFO is too valuable. The founder is too valuable to be on regular commercial airline travel. So we have a private jet, and we want him to be able to fly wherever he goes as a part of its function of doing business. If I found a new company, is there a decent chance that that new company would buy a jet and that I would suddenly fly that jet everywhere and never fly commercial again? Yes. I was out to dinner recently with a corporate exec, and I was talking with him. And he had a flight to take that night, and we were talking about private jets. And I said, when's the last time you flew commercial? And this is one of the biggest flexes I've ever heard. He said, 1995. Guy's been flying all over the world. And I was like, not anybody at Fox, by the way. Not anybody you guys would know, I don't think. Not anybody who has like a super public profile. This executive, super rich, obviously, had not flown commercial airline since 1995. Nearly 30 years of private aviation. I was like, man, that's a hell of a flex. To have been that wealthy for that long. I'll dive into this a little bit more tomorrow about the protests. I got several other things that I have to do today, but let me just close you with this. The Biden Oval Office address. He said that he was stepping down to save democracy. And you might have seen me talking about this with Jesse Waters on Fox News after that. Said I'm stepping down to save democracy. And I thought to myself, what an unbelievably arrogant, untrue statement to make. You're saving democracy by putting in place Kamala Harris, who didn't receive a single vote for president of the United States in this entire primary season. 14 million votes for Joe Biden. Democrats, after he got knocked out June 27th, said, you have to go. And he has the gall, the audacity, to say that he's stepping down to save democracy by elevating Kamala Harris to the office, despite the fact that she hasn't gotten a single vote ever this cycle, and she dropped out in 2020 before voting started as an actual presidential candidate. You want to talk about a guy with a lot of pressure on him? If Kamala Harris wins, then Joe Biden, I told you, they're going to treat him like he's George Washington. If she loses, then everybody's going to be saying, why in the world did Biden not step down in the spring or summer of 2023 from the 2024 race and allow a full Democrat primary to play out and see who would have been selected? Maybe Kamala Harris would have been the nominee. I don't think she would have, though. I think she would have actually ended up losing. All right. I'll talk tomorrow about the burning of the American flags at Union Station. I have a really strong take on that. In fact, I'm going to rip this off and ensure that I've got it sitting right here with a star on it so that I can remember to discuss it. Frankly, it's unacceptable that we've allowed this to occur. Not the burning of the American flag. I'm actually okay with the burning of the American flag within the context of First Amendment support. In fact, let me just go ahead and talk about it for a couple of minutes, actually. If you didn't see it, at Union Station, which is the train station right beside the Capitol, there were 3 American flags that I saw pulled down from the flag, pulled down there, all burned. One was saved by a lawyer who saw it happening and decided that he should go grab that American flag even as it was burning and refused to allow the rest of it. And he's an American hero, good for him. But they replaced the American flags with Palestinian flags, and they burned the United States flag. They graffitied all over monuments there, pro-Hamas slogans. They chanted "Death to America," all in response to Benjamin Netanyahu's speech. Netanyahu's speech, I went back and watched it, was Winston Churchill-like in its clarity between good and evil. One of the big problems that we have in America today is we have lost the ability to distinguish between good and evil. So let me reinforce this for all you useful idiot protesters, as Netanyahu called you, who are being funded by Iran and by anti-American agitators. You are supporting people who killed 1,200 innocent Jews. You are on the side of Nazis while claiming that you're worried about history and how it's going to judge you. You are morons. There is no moral equivalency between innocent victims and the perpetrators of evil. What happened on October 7th was the deadliest day for Jewish people since the Holocaust. Hamas wants to eradicate Israel from the map. When you are gay for Hamas protesters, as Netanyahu said, it's the equivalent of being chickens protesting on behalf of Kentucky Fried Chicken. You are morons of an exceptionally high magnitude. And you aren't even intelligent enough to understand how moronic you are because you bought into the ultimate evil, this idea that America and its history is evil itself, and so you aren't allowed to even understand the difference between good and evil because America's evil. This is the whole concept of the 1619 Project. If America's founded in evil, then America itself can be evil, and many of those that are perpetrating actual evil aren't responsible for their actions. Let me tell you this. When you murder babies and their moms and their dads and their grandmas and their grandpas because they happen to actually be Jewish, you are evil. There is no defending that act. When you brag about how many Jews you killed, when you kidnap over 100 innocent Jewish people and you now have held them hostage for nearly 10 months, there is no defending your acts. You are the bad guys. You are evil. And the fact that we have allowed these groups all over the United States to rise up largely without being condemned, and much of it now on the far left in this country, and I would say the same thing to the right. If there are people in your party who hate someone because of their race, their religion, or their sexuality, in my opinion, you need to call those people out. Right now, on the left, there are massive numbers of people who are very comfortable in their anti-Semitism. They won't support Josh Shapiro as the governor of Pennsylvania or as the vice president, potentially, of Kamala Harris because he's Jewish. That's wrong. And by the way, people on the right who have that opinion, that's wrong too. It's important to speak directly about hate and evil and condemn it. I've been doing it since October 7th. I'm going to Israel next week to see for myself with my own eyes what happened there. I'm putting myself in far greater danger in Israel than I would be in the United States so that I can see it for myself and talk to all of you about what I see there. And so that hopefully with our audience of millions of people on the radio, I can help people out there who might not be able to see it with the moral clarity that they should, of all ages and all races, why what happened on October 7th must be condemned and never allowed to happen again, and why Israel has the right to defend itself to ensure that it never happens again. So when I see the American flag being burned and the flags of Palestine being raised and the symbols of Hamas being engraved, graffitied onto American monuments, there must be consequences for these acts. Marketplace of ideas is such that I believe, and I understand some of you disagree with me, the First Amendment protections are so important that you should be able to burn an American flag. I wouldn't do it. I don't support it. But I do support your right to do that, just as I would support your right to burn a pride flag or a POW flag or a Hamas supporting Palestinian flag. But that doesn't mean that those actions are morally equivalent in terms of what they represent. Hamas is a terrorist organization that must be directly, impartially, and unequivocally condemned. I'm doing it. I'll do it for as long as I live. And if you have a functional brain, you should be doing the same, and you should be telling your kids and grandkids that truth as well. All right, I wanted to talk about it a little bit. I will see you guys tomorrow. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I am Clay Travis, and this is OutKick, the show.